catch hell from the same enemy. We're all in the same bag, in the same boat. We suffer political oppression, economic exploitation, and social degradation. All of them from the same enemy. The government has failed us. You can't deny that. Anytime you live in the 20th century, 1964, and you walking around here singing, "We shall overcome," the government has failed. And the white liberals, who have been posing as our friends, have failed us. And once we see that all these other sources to which we've turned have failed, we stop turning to them and turn to ourselves. We need a self-help program.
Alrighty then. Hey. Greetings, Hotep Bagwaba, bless up, and welcome to the recovery room of Racism Non-Anonymous. That revolutionary 12-step self-help program that has been uniquely designed with you and me, the African, first and foremost, in mind. Designed to support our healing and recovering from the traumatic stress of the human intentional type that African descendants have experienced here on planet Earth for several hundred centuries, as I understand it. Yes? And you may ask at this point, well, who am I? I am Sis Abana Africa, the recovering African, who is and has been and is still culturally enslaved here in America. And I am a representative from the voices and the margins, true to the cause of African liberation via unification, utilizing the tool of healthy and effective communications. You see, I am a traumatologist as well. Trauma queen and queen of trauma. And I will say to you, the drama is the trauma. So there are certainly parts of myself that has or holds a very compelling story of, oh good Lord, what are some of the most intriguing dramas? It's usually involves some sex, some crime, addiction, and the ensuing effects on the individuals who are involved in those situations and scenarios, those stories. And the story is very dramatic, very traumatizing. See, the drama is the trauma in that regard. And so, trauma queen and queen of trauma. And that is understanding trauma and traumatic stress, what it is and how it has and continues to work in the lives not only of African descendants, I'm very well aware of that. It's in the lives of, folks on the planet. It most certainly, from history as is documented and detailed, most certainly highlights a story, an origin story that involved traumatic and dramatic events. Very dramatic and very traumatic events. So for the moment. So it's like, welcome. Yeah, this is a meeting in the recovery zone, and what can I say? So we're just moving right into the meeting. It's a topic discussion meeting, you could say, for those who are familiar with 12-step programs. At any rate, there's a very not loose. It's a very nice framework. It's structured. It has this structure, and this is a revolutionary program. So there are some alterations, if you will, to support fitting the specific and the unique needs that I had for myself. See, having gone through 12-step programs myself, having studied it, having supported others in it, having witnessed family members and so forth, I'm pretty familiar with that process of healing, recovery from addiction. And yeah, I recognized there were some things in that program that needed some adjustments to meet the unique needs of me as an African descendant. Now, music is my mantra, and Tanya Stevens is singing Cherry Brandy. It's talking about addiction, right? Check. And but if I just go back, no. Right, Nick. Do what I am working on. Okay, we're gonna do that, and then we're gonna pause here for a minute because this particular tune, "Cherry Brandy" by Tanya Stevens, certainly speaks to addiction, the disease of addiction, and in particular, Cherry Brandy is focused on drinking and alcoholism. And growing up and coming from where I'm from was, pretty much a communal issue. People drank, and I know now why. I can understand the whys and what fors of it all, and at the same time, recognizing the pain, the problem, the drama, and the trauma that comes from it, that comes with it, right? So, yeah, the story is real because as I listened to Tanya Stevens tell this story, it really tuned me in and helped me understand my mom and my grandmoms and their drinking. What happened? It's like, what happened? Something happened. When people take something to feel better, to, feel something different than they're feeling, something has happened to cause them to feel discomfort, uncomfort, pain, shame, anger. They need to calm down, they need to chill, whatever, right? Reasons why people take a drink. It's just to relax and chill. And sometimes people drink more and more and more because internally they're very discombobulated, if you will. And what causes it? That becomes the question. Me, I was always the child, the very one inquisitive. As a seer, as an empath, that is my spiritual makeup. I ask questions. And in a world such that we live with the controls and it's opposed to mission control that's in operation, asking questions is not okay, especially from those who are deemed, according to the standards of society, to be the lower class, because now they never teach us about the underclass. However, it's been exposed that this is also an underclass. Under that lower class is an underclass. The most interesting dynamic about that, again, I shared a couple of days ago, is, what I see and know is what we all maybe see and know now, but with the covers being pulled back up there on the top level of society, the entertainment industry, because that's the primary controlling puppet, if you will, to entertain we the people. It is that upper class who is also the elite, the controlling class. They are also form the underclass. And that is a very, interesting yet interesting dynamic. That the elite class, that upper class, is also the underclass. And the classes in between are who we, the lower class, and the middle class and the upper class. Because even above the upper class, there's the elite class, that upper one, just like below the lower is the underclass, underworld. Very interesting. Say, wow, okay, so it provides me with a different framework. Even as I have studied, developed, talked about, teach, I do this talking and teaching when I work with clients over the years, and currently I work to put that together. I've also put some things together in a book that I'm still adding to and will be further developing. Malcolm's Mandate, and Malcolm's Mandate is the program first, RNA, and there's lots of information that sort of undergirds the development and practice of the program. Because part of the practice of the program will be hearing from me, learning from me, listening to me as I talk and teach healthy and effective communication, and support people with developing the tools and accessing their tools, and then learning, how to use them in order to, for themselves, heal and recover. Many of us need healing, whether it's spiritual, mostly just emotional. Spiritual, emotional for me is synonymous. Mental and emotional healing, being able to feel comfortable, calm, confident in the world, feeling comfortable with expressing our thoughts and feelings with others, feeling comfortable with ourselves, accepting. A lot of it is about really ultimately it's about learning how to accept shit. Shitty situations, recognizing and understanding we live in a world where shit is just the major part of the mix. It's that all this shit, the manure that keeps the system growing and developing and changing. And so we, the people on the lower classes, the lower middle class folks, become, food for their fodder. They dump their shit on us and grow us up and keep us running and doing shit to survive. And in so doing, we are supporting them with thriving. It's a whole mix mash of shit. And understanding that and coming to a place where you have some sense of control over yourself, because it could get pretty knocked around. It's a rocky road. It's the seas the seas of life are pretty tumultuous, and people are constantly throwing rocks. The shit has hit the fan. It's flying all over the place. People are hurting each other intentionally. People are having difficulty in communicating, so they end up hurting each other, hurting their families, hurting themselves. Their relationships is so sad. In the last few years, I've learned so much about how many, especially for Black women that I have worked with, where there seems to have been this trend of long-term friendships being dramatically and traumatically severed. And that, because the shit has hit the fan. And the shit is those deep emotional wounds that we all carry from our own childhood experiences in our families, in our community, and or the broader society. We have all experienced it. Whether, again, you're witness it in your home, you're witness it on a television show, you're witness it on the news. And how dramatic and traumatizing was it 911, where they just constantly played for a couple of hours, I believe, that day. The first few hours was hours, maybe 24 to 36 hours. He just kept showing us the planes hitting the building, the plane hitting the building, the plane hitting the building, almost as if to desensitize us to it. Like, why? And that just takes me to another little trend I see on social media. This toy, what is it? This the flower, the cactus, the dancing cactus that interacts with the child, babies, children. And for the life of me, it's become to the point where it's just really horrendous how, it's interesting. Parents will, why do they do this to the children? That they see the response that the spirit has to this thing. And where's the humor? I don't see the humor in it anymore. Why would you terrify your child at that age? You don't understand what you're doing to the child's nervous system. I wonder how, and if people, how they how they repair that. What do they do after you've laughed at the child and laughed at the thing? Do you continue to do it to support the child with becoming desensitized to it? How do you comfort them? How do you teach them? What are you teaching them? What's the point of it? Because without that, it's that type of stuff that we grow up with, and our bodies remember. So our bodies carry, the impact of it. And that's something that I recognize. It seems we just never have been talked about it in this way, kind of plain and simple. It's talked about, it's taught in therapy rooms, and it has been for years, that therapy is just the way information, as I've learned, based on my personal experiences as a patient, my educational experiences, and then working in the field for, the past 30 years. I was going to say, I recognize just the ways that they have of disseminating the information. And for me, it's disseminated in a way that keeps people locked into the same cycle of shit. And I really divert, and I'm different, and I break it down, and I teach and talk about it in a very different way, and in a way where people can really see themselves and do the work that they signed up to do. We go right into it and begin to do it. I'm not even sure how I got into that. I stopped Cherry Brandy and paused that for a minute. So how about if we kind of unpause it and just listen to what the sister is saying? The question she's asking, it's the thing about reggae music and why it really sits with me, it fills my spirit connects. I always tell people, they ask me where am I from and who and my response is typically all that we are, I am. So, am I Christian? Yes and no. Buddhist, Rasta, yes and no. I am pieces of all of that. All that we are, I am. I see all those sort of religious systems, belief systems, they all emanate from one, and it was all shattered. And who is that one? Is we, Mama Earth, who was shattered some time ago. And we are coming back together. I've integrated. So it's about that integration. So I do not compartmentalize myself off into one camp: Christian, Rasta, Buddhist, Catholic, JV, all these different things, Muslim, Islam. There are parts of all of them that I recognize, I respect, I hold, and I carry for myself, and I live. I practice, and I live. So, Cherry Brandy, we're going to take this real quick break and listen to that.
Who will you call at 2 in the morning when you're feeling lonely and you got no friends? Where do you go when is a crisis, 'cause you're paying the prices for living insane. Nobody wants to know if you're feeling down in the dump. Climb all the way up to the top floor, but you can't even get up the guts to jump. No, cherry brandy, I'm being real handy. Vodka, wine, and whiskey, but I'm fine. If I get lucky, baby, I'll make it to started. Happy spinning country in my mind. Where do you go when your world turns sour and every hour just brings more pain? Who wants to know that you're crying a river happens over and over and it's all the same? What do you do when you're giving your heart and it's torn apart and thrown back in your face? Who wants to know that your life is open and words are spoken that you can't erase?
Who?
The world always looks better after I put down a pillow. I know we're not together. When I'm stoned, I'm lying right next to you.
Cherry brandy. Comes in real handy. That's my sister and Tanya Stevens. And when I heard that song, this must have been my husband was still alive. So it must have been about a good 15, maybe almost 20 years ago. Time is moving pretty quickly. Woo! No, 20 years ago, it would have been 2000, somewhere back up in there when I first heard this tune. And again, that really answers some questions that I've had and helped me understand and, clarify. It's about addiction and understanding the disease of addiction. And it's an appropriate topic for us tonight. It's just that's really the central theme in what I'm, thinking about and talking about, have been talking about the disease of addiction. That is also the trauma that we continue to experience. It's the trauma that the trauma trap, as I see it for myself here. In that, I'm gonna say this is pretty deep. It's good deep. I can get a sense of myself, so to speak, when I'm getting ready to say something that is deep. Because the information kind of gets clogged up. I have to breathe, and there's a level of excitement and revelation bursting through inside the mind. Like, wow, okay, wow. And my mind is becoming distracted away from it. Why? As I get ready to say here, and I'll come back in a second. But it's talking about the disease of addiction. Is dealing with addiction. This program is about it because it's a 12-step program. Just it deals with the disease of addiction. The addiction we're dealing with is our addiction to the system of racism, white supremacy, which is a cultural style. It's a way of thinking and behaving. Kind of simple as that. And it is how, again, this situation seems that we are in life historically has been about, the disease of addiction teaches us the addict is, you always want more. One is too many, 1,000 is never enough. Yeah, because the first time we helped them way back then when they came up out the caves and the Mama Wata, the Sibyls, and we helped them and we taught them and we educated them. That wasn't enough for them. They had to have more. The more they got, it still wasn't a flip-flopping enough. And they continue to build shit to steal, to kill, to enslave, to enculturate. One is too many, 1,000 is never enough. The addiction in this American societal system and the elite and all that shit is the addiction to power and control. That's the primary disease that runs the world now. And we have all been socialized into that way of thinking and behaving, always seeking to gain power and control, because we have no internal controls and never learned how to exercise our own internal controls. That was one of the things that was taken away from us in our knowledge, frowned upon, and called all kinds of other stuff like voodoo and spooky, witchcraft and all that shit. That's what they called our natural spiritual stuff. And then they take it and use it, because that's what they did. They stole the sacerdotal seed, stole all our shit, and then claiming it and using it for themselves, yet using it in a way so as to do what? Gain more power and control over people. Sex trafficking, child trafficking, all that foolishness and fuckery. So you have to excuse my French, if you will, because there are times when the mind and the spirit begins to think about some shit that's unjust, the anger is a natural response. Now I am managing it in a way, I may be using some profane words, and my spirit's energy is, rising in the tone and, energy of the voice that may signal, that person sounds like they pissed off, they angry, yay. Yes. And I can still have a smile, and I'm still smiling and laughing, and I see not humor. There's no humor in it. Yet I suppose it's my, spirit learns how to laugh to keep from, crying, and or allowing the spirit to go fully into that rage in the mindset. I know how to calm my spirit. I know how to shift my thinking. I know how to move through the gaps in my thoughts to find peace. And I can let those thoughts sort of float on by. And continue to recognize it. However, when it comes up and it's floating by, I may call on it and highlight it. Say, look at this shit. Look at this bunch of shit. And it might be some big shit. And then let it go. Ain't there some shit? Now, how are we going to do it? Now we're going to talk about how I deal with that. What do I do with that in order for it to not overwhelm me and for me to not get carried away in it? In any one of the thoughts. It's learning how to manage my breath. Take myself off of autopilot. Take active control of my spirit. That is myself. Breathe. Focus on my breath. The breath is me. That's the spirit. That's me. Entered this body on the day I was born. Will leave this body on the day I am gone from this planet, in this here and now. And I'll go to another place in there and then. So the breath, that's the self. So getting control of the self is just focusing on and taking control. Breathe, taking control of my breath. Slowing it down, calming my spirit. When we calm the spirit, we calm the mind. And when I can calm my mind, then I can take control of the thoughts. What am I thinking? And I can decide if it's a thought that is true or not, if I could challenge it, if I could look at it from a couple of different perspectives, if it's a thought that's causing me some feelings that I'm not wanting to feel in the moment, or that's confusing, some shit. I'm trying to understand, like, why would you do? Why would a person do this? Why would this happen? Why would that happen? Why would he do this? Why would she do this? Why would they do this? This is awful. This is terrible. This is off. It's not fair. What are the things we're thinking? And because those type of thoughts are thoughts that we can begin to challenge and change, because those thoughts keep our spirits worked up, agitated. And in order to find the answers that we're looking for, we want to have keep a calm spirit so that we can really see ourselves and learn to listen to that inner voice that's connected to the spirit that we came from. That's what I suspect. That's what I think. And that's how I move. That's my plan. Here in the recovery room of Racism Not Anonymous, we share our experience, strength, and plan for dealing with the shit called racism, because it brings some pretty crappy experiences in our life, and we need a plan. You need a plan when you gotta go to work, and you gotta work, in this place 40 hours a week with all the microaggressions and the bullshit that go on in terms of racist white supremacy, and now, especially in such a time as this, coming up before January 2025, whereby this whole MAGA collective seems to be gearing up for some shit. It's like they're big, snowballs. Wintertime here on the East Coast, and back in the days it didn't snow a whole lot and do it a whole lot yet. When you have a big snowfall, people start making snowball tents. It's like they're building up their ammo right now. Building up their balls of shit they can really be slinging and throwing come February, January. And you are likely to need some tools. Those who are going to be hit, that will be folks of African descent, as well as other people of color, people who are at risk for deportation and shit like that. How are you going to handle this experience in your life? What are the things you are telling yourself about the experience? What are the things you're telling yourself about yourself? And what are the things you are telling yourself about the steps that have gotten you where you are? Because you can look back at 5 years ago, I coulda, shoulda, woulda, and if I had done X, Y, and Z, then I wouldn't. Then that, all that. Those things. What's the conversations? Because it's probably lots of conversations happening in people's heads, people's minds, people's hearts. And how are you managing those things? So that's what I do as a communications coach, a therapist, who provides coaching, who's a coach. I'm a therapist who is a coach, and as a coach, I can, interact and share with you and educate you from a therapeutic perspective as well. So you're getting the double dose, and you're getting the both and package. Yes, I do. So I'm a certified coach. I have certification in coaching industry and life coaching. Yet going through it, it's like this is the same thing I've been doing. This is nothing different than therapy for me, because I practice therapy probably in a very coaching format, which is very different from how therapists are taught to practice and work with folks. And that becomes the difference. I can support a person with looking at their life story in the first hour. It doesn't take weeks or months of building and this and this and that and all this shit. People want to talk about what's happening now. And this shit is what it is. So let's just uncover it and look at it like, oh, okay, now let's look at what we want to do to deal with where you're at. Prioritize. What are the things that typically is those things that are getting in the way? And once people get a better understanding of themselves, because it's an understanding yourself and the parts of yourself that hinder, your movement, your growth and change. So it's all tied up in that way. Addiction is all tied up. Step 1 of Racism Not Anonymous is the first step, whether it's the first step in any program of addiction, is you want to admit. You have to admit, you surrender, admit it. I'm addicted. Alcohol is my problem. Drug is my problem. Food is my problem. I admit it, and my life is jacked up as a result. Here, we recognize racism is the fucking problem. We are programmed racism, white supremacy is the primary way of thinking and behaving in this world. I admit it. We think and behave like Europeans taught us to. We think and behave in the way that they do. That's how we were taught. Admit it and recognize that your African life is unmanageable. And African life, just a dichotomy between European cultural thought and behavior, which is about a me, I'm getting for me, and it's okay, it's human, quote unquote, it's human nature to hurt other people and take from them. Like, come on. No, that's not part of my nature as a woman of African descent. And I guess, they never considered us human in any damn way. So in human nature, that's y'all. Y'all ain't consider us human, right? Because we're not really quote unquote human like you in that regard. It's not my nature to want to and to feel comfortable and to justify hurting or taking from another for my own gain and my own personal benefit. It's about learning how to work together and share and build. That's the energy and the mindset and the framework I come from as a woman of African descent. That's my cultural legacy. However, I live in a world where when you do that, then people say, that's somebody I can take advantage of. Yeah. Because they have a different principle. So Christians, you're supposed to be quote unquote different. However, we see people who are quote unquote Christian and how much they adhere to those values of those biblical teachings and so forth. And they can lose it easily when triggered, right? And this is the same deal as working to live from an African cultural perspective, which is a perspective of, again, building, working together versus competing with each other. Not slinging. Well, shit has two sides. Either stress of the human intentional type or it's the sugar honey iced tea. Like, yes, do some more of that type of shit. Sweet shit. As opposed to the shitty shit that needs to be flushed. The flip side of the coin, the both and. And that's the world, that I live in. It's a both and dynamic, up and down. Even as I look at, this image that I have is showing that picture with the image of Africa, and I see it's upside down. And that's what recovery teaches us to do. You have to learn to flip the script to understand and find the truth about, yourself, the world, and the world we're in. While they tell us it's good for us, when we flip the script, we recognize they're getting ready to fuck us up. That's what history has taught me as a woman of African descent. Every time they say they got something to help us, the government. And you know how Malcolm said the government has failed. This is the government shit. That's what they do. They put out stuff and they sell us this shit and they say, this is for to help you. And then 10, 20, 30 years later, you find out how this shit was really designed to hurt you and it's been fucking you up or hurting us really bad. Flip the script. So for me, it was like a no-brainer. I'm sorry when it comes to things like getting poked with something that they just developed, 6 months ago, and you're telling me just for my benefit. I'd rather wait and see 10 years because I know how y'all do. Y'all give you people stuff, and then 10 years later, we find out all this other stuff about that stuff that was too soon. Wait. No, So, yeah, that's how it is, kind of how it works. So what are we, 39 minutes in, and I'm still up here in the zone alone with me, myself, and I. So I'm never alone. It's always we three, me, mommy, me, myself, and I. And so that's the plan for me, is to continue at this point to be here and to share with you all. It feels really weird, yet comfortably weird, that I am able to sort of speak so freely right now. And I have to wonder how much it may have to do with the fact that I'm not visible to you. It's just the image. And that is an issue with this computer that I do not know how to correct at this point. Why it's showing that, but it won't show myself. The camera's not working. So like maybe that's just it. The camera's not working, but these images can work. So yeah, when internet and all this stuff became available and YouTube and all these things 25 years ago or so, right? I always wanted to be able to just create a video and say some stuff to people and respond to people in different social media sites that were up and running during those times. And yeah, it was always kind of weird to do videos because I was always talking to the camera, and that really just would throw me off. So I have grown and I've changed over time, whereby I am today a lot more comfortable with speaking my mind and saying what I'm saying. I'm not so happy just yet. I hope if you're listening, you give me a like, a share, a subscribe. Help me build up some internet, some algorithm presence, because thus far I still get very few views. How much the red line is still in effect? Probably so. I've been redlined on the internet from 25 years ago. I'm pretty clear about that. I know now what's been happening and why I caught the flack, and how things started to happen even on Facebook, and learning now how the system works to shut down particular voices and particular energies and all of the kind of antics that people can do with the internet, stealing your profile, stealing your name, perpetrating to be you and saying shit to people, and people will never come to you and ask you and check with you directly. Especially, I suppose, if you talking to on the internet, you're talking to the computer. You're not talking to the person. And how do you know that that's the person, that the actual person? People, you can't know. Some people, some situations you cannot know. Some situations you can know, and people don't go and ask the person directly. They just base off what they see on the computer screen. Well, you said this. No, somebody could have stole your profile and hacked your account and all that good stuff. So I'm sure that I have been hacked and probably presented to people as saying shit that it was never even me. Never even me. And no one has ever come and said anything or asked me in any kind of way, talk to me directly. And I don't know. I suppose people can perpetrate to be another person, because especially if it's people you only met on the internet, you don't know what their voice sounds like. So somebody calls and say, "Yeah, this is me," then that's who you think is that person. That doesn't necessarily mean it's true. So just based on the dynamics and my experiences on the internet, past 25 years ago, and even I would say, I guess 10, 11 years ago, I stopped. Back in 2013 is when I really kind of dropped off. Yet from the early 2000s, that period from 2004-ish to 2013, I was pretty active on the internet, social media, YouTube. I did have some followers, and then there were a lot of things, blog talk and other platforms that were out during that time. And then I started to see the trend, especially when Facebook became much more popular, and you go on Facebook and you say stuff, and I would see how stuff would happen and the way people would come at me and things that people were saying. It was really, really harsh. So now I know what that was. It was all the spy bots and the controllers. I don't know what to call them, folks. But those who controlled and ran the internet in terms of what would be seen and what would be heard, and who would be seen and who would be heard. And if you were not one of the folks who were supposed to be seen or heard, they had their ways of shutting you up and shutting you down. now, because I already come from the little dynamic and background of being quote unquote shut down. I had to learn myself, more about myself, and do the work that I needed to do to heal and recover those parts so that I did not respond in the same ways, as I did before, because I learned some shit about myself. I practice all the things I preach and teach. I've done lots of therapeutic work myself, before actively practice, before learning and before enduring my process of learning and beginning practice. I was also always engaged in my own individual and personal work. So I would hear many other sistering, working in the field, helping people, whether they were community based and or societal level based, other social workers and folks, black folks. Yeah, I remember this one sister, Muslim sister, and she would always be frustrated, and she would say how therapists, us quote unquote, the therapists, the social workers, needed to do our own work. And they never knew I did. I've always done my own work. I agree with them, and I've always done my own. And though, because we lost that concept of learning how to talk to each other and build together something that we wanted to see happen, and that people didn't know how to do. People didn't know how to do. We didn't know how to do that. And people have their cliques, so you have to belong to a particular clique, whether it was being in the Nation of Islam, whether it was being active in your church, or active on some community group. Those were the people who you clicked with and who you followed, and you all had the same way of thinking and behaving. And when I went to a lot of these rooms, it's like, holy crap, no wonder the people out here on the street all jacked up. This was happening up in these rooms. And they are not interested in looking at themselves in any way. So people are not ready, able, and willing, raw, to take that first step and stop for a minute and look at your god darn self. Take a breath, realize that everything you're sitting here in this meeting, that we have to have a meeting, but we got to follow Robert's rules of orders. Shush! See, that trigger this part and be like, the fuck? Now that triggers the mommy in me, my super ego. Because that's what gets triggered when anger comes up like that. The super ego, the mommy, mama Africa, mama Earth, they say, what, it's time to clean this shit up. I'm sick of it. It still make no damn sense. Ready to have go off and be, how my mom, you had to be like a park ape. You had to be like an ape to get the kids to do what you're supposed to do. And it's like, whew. See, just talking about it made it pass. Like, whoo. That's how you pass. Like, all right, just spit it out and let it get the hell. Yeah, that triggers. I don't know what triggered mommy, whatever it was. I suppressed it back, or I pushed it away. I'm letting it pass just by speaking it out or saying that part. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to say for myself. I want. To take a deep breath. We can bring this meeting to a close. Step one, taking that first step, admitting we're programming self-destruct. Admitting, because when we sit in these rooms and we have to practice these cultural ways, Robert rules of order. This is how you have to run a meeting. You have to have this order. You have to have it. Oh, good Lord, the dang blasted you and I, folks these days. Still trying to hold on to Marcus Garvey's layout. And his layout was based on what he learned, yet we have learned by now that shit. You president, a president general, a second president general, all these orders and all this shit and read. It's like, you put that shit aside and just look at right here, what we got right here in front of us, without all of these flip-flopping rules and orders that somebody else came up with anyway. Can we just for a minute recognize that this shit has not been helping us for hundreds of years? And we need to apply it in a different way. If they want to apply it differently and adjust to changes in time and shit. No, we had to follow this order, this structure. In this order and this structure, the people are following an order and structure that was given to us by the European, how they think and behave and how they set shit up. And when you understand that Europeans set shit up in order to benefit and capitalize off of our natural resources, our black asses, first and foremost. And if we're practicing that, then we're practicing how to eat off of ourselves, so to speak, and wondering why. Our families, our communities, and by default, then this whole damn society. Is in the lava ground. Yeah, it's a whole lava ground. Bloody hell. We wonder why. And that's what I see. You tell me what you think. Thanks for listening to me share. That's what I see. That's what this first step is about. Taking that first step and admitting. Yep. And I've been programmed to self-destruct. See, for a person, and especially black folks, to look at yourself and admit that, then I understand the challenge, and it's always the hardest step. And that's all I know. The first step in anything is the hardest step. The journey of 1,000 miles starts with the first step. And if you are ambivalent about taking a 1,000-mile walk, you may not take that first step until you're ready and committed to that 1,000-mile walk. And that walk that you're working to take is a walk back to your African self and your cultural way of behaving in the world. Yeah? Well, there's so much more I could say, I know, and I'm not going to, because I like to upload my little recordings, and I don't want to drag it out too long for people to listen to just one voice in the back, people don't want to listen. So you can join me anytime. Again, like, share, and the more I learn about how to put the links in so that you can find me, on Zoom and join me for a meeting and join in. And I need to learn how to use YouTube to do a YouTube live or something where people can click in. StreamYard, I see, is what one platform people use. So I need to do some more work with learning how to use those tools. So that's where I am. Thanks for listening to me share. You stay safe until next time. Peace.